Welcome to this episode of Gunman. So this video here is a 5-hour, one-day wonder smart repair on this quarter panel and door here. Give you guys a quick overview on the damage that we've got here for starters. So you can see the damage has come right inside this door jamb. It's not too bad, but I still decided I'm going to get my little spot dent puller and pull that out with the dent puller. So to use the dent puller, you must put these anti-zap things onto your battery terminals, or else you run the risk of frying your computer in these newer cars. An older car, yeah, you probably wouldn't have to worry about it if it doesn't have a computer in there. You can alternatively just unplug your battery, but some people say, hey man, you've lost all my radio stations, so it's always a good idea to have those little anti-zappers. So there's the damage there. You can see I've pulled that door trim off. I needed to do that to get that lower door mold off, because they've got a couple of screws on from the inside on this model. All we're doing is just doing below the moldings on this one, and we're just doing a smart repair, spot repair, whatever you want to call it, spot up. So to start off, I'm just getting the roll-lock grinder, which is these little 3M discs that go onto a mini air grinder here, 80 grit, and I'm just removing all the paint so that when I get my spot puller, I'll be able to stick onto that steel there. Pretty good little tool, these things, those little spotters. It's actually a spot welder as well, so probably $5,000 to $10,000 if you were to buy one, but it came with my workshop, so hey, I may as well put it to use. In hindsight, I probably should have used it when I was doing that little Echo of mine that you've probably seen me do a little while ago, but not to worry. I've dragged it out, dusted it off, and got it working. So down the bottom there, I'm just going to be putting this is an earth, so without the earth it's totally not going to work, because electricity needs flow, positive and negative, to flow through, and you're basically welding this little tip to the panel, and then it's got a bit of a dent puller, like a slide hammer type thing on it, and then you just pull that handle back and it pops the dent out for you. So all you do there is just pull the trigger. They've got all these settings on there, and the book is there, and you can read the correct settings for the correct applications. But I'm more of a point and shoot kind of guy. I am a spray painter, make no mistake. I'm not a panel beater, but I'll give anything a shot, and 99% of the time I'm pretty happy with the results I get. So yeah, as you see, just spotting it up and pulling it out. Now, I did keep going with that for probably another 5 to 10 minutes. I just ended up cutting the footage out. It's already a fairly long video, because I decided to do this job from start to finish, including every single stage that it took me to get the job done. So once I'm happy I got it out far enough, I decided to get that grinder back out and just get rid of all the areas that it had burnt, because if I was to put the filler straight over the top of those burnt areas, then it would probably just wouldn't have adhesion. So there's a few high spots from where it's pulled it up a little bit too far, and I'm just getting my panel hammer and tapping them down. Pretty basic. Look, if you didn't have one of these dent pullers, you could obviously just hit your high spots down, bog it up. I mean, go for it, do what you got to do. Doesn't bother me, and I've done it before. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I don't make these videos to prove a point to anyone. I make these videos because I enjoy it. I love spray painting, and I tell you what, I got a great kick out of doing this job in 5 hours. I just set myself a goal. I get some pre-workout powder at work, which is just basically like having 2 cans of Red Bull or something like that, or a couple of big coffees, and I just set myself a target. I say, if I can get that done in 3 or 4 hours, and yeah, just see how I go. And yeah, it's just good fun, and it's great to be able to share this with the world and everybody that follows me. So yeah, once I've done that, I tap those high spots down and put some 80 grit on the sander, and just removing any more of the other spots that may have had a bit of contamination from the spot puller on it. And then just tapping down, I ended up finding another high spot on it. Sometimes when you get a low spot, it'll warp the panel around it, so you'll end up with a high spot next to it. So that's what I was doing just there, just tapping that edge down that had ended up bulging out a bit, giving it another quick sand off, and then blow it down with the high pressure there. Next up, I'm just mixing up some body filler. Just being rough for this first coat. It's going to need 2 coats, and I never expected to get it in the first coat. Gravity's not really working in your favour. As you'll be able to see here, it's sort of dripping off and wanting to run onto that wheel. So you'll see I put my filler board underneath there to protect it from hitting the wheel and making a total big mess. If the panels were off the car, yeah, it might be a little bit easier. You could jack it up in the air, take your wheel off, but you know, the job really didn't justify it. And always when I use that little spot repair, if I don't have any panels off, say if I had that rear bumper bar removed, I would have been able to put my earth sort of underneath, somewhere that's out of sight. But I ended up putting a little low spot in it as well. It always happens where you've pinched up your earth from that little spotter, but not to worry. Yeah, there's some other really cool ones. My uncle used to have a one called a Stinger, and if you can find one of them for a reasonable price, I really do recommend getting one. It's basically got these little rivets, and then you weld these rivets on with this gun, and then you just get a similar type thing as that slide hammer. You tighten the slide hammer up onto it and you pull them out, and it yeah, it does quite a good job. You do have to be careful with them. Sometimes you can sort of blow holes in it if you have your settings wrong and if you pull too hard on the metal. So I'm just hitting it, that filler once it's dried. Probably only needed to give it around 10 minutes. Nice warm morning, as you can see, the sun's shining in. Beautiful Perth day. And just 80 grit on the orbital sander just to knock the mud down, knock the tops off it, and I've finished that and got the small block just with a bit of 80 grit, and I'm using the little 3M block and the 3M purple sandpaper. Awesome setup. I might actually even do a video just on my sandpaper range in the not too distant future. It's one of those things that I believe just about every workshop needs the entire range of sandpapers, right from say 2.5, 3, 4,000 right the way to 40 grit, and they all have their place and they all have a use in specific jobs. There's certain ones that I use more than others, but yeah, I do believe that you need most of them. So there was 1 or 2 spots that I found. It was still a touch high, so I just grabbed the back of the hammer and just knocked them down a touch, and I'll just be reapplying some more filler in. So that gives you a bit of an idea of the amount of hardener that you need in there. You don't want to put too much in there. It can actually end up having an adverse effect. Yeah, it will it'll go off a little bit quicker, but it'll actually stay a little bit cheesy and it won't adhere. You won't get the adhesion as you will, and it won't actually go rock hard like it does when you've got the correct amount in there. So you usually do get left behind with a few pinholes with this kind of filler. You can improve that by the way you're mixing it, but I'll be able to pick that up later on. Either just before you prime it, just nip a couple of little bits up, or even after you prime it with a touch of fine filler, which is what I ended up doing this time. Horses for courses, you know, depending on the kind of job you're doing, you might want to do it all before you prime it, but for this job it was just a bang up job. Just a quickie. Owner was real happy with it. Well, it's actually a bit of a funny story of this job. It's an English guy that works down at the airport where we do a little bit of work as well. And his girlfriend had gone away on holidays, and he's like, oh, while she's away, I'll do this for him. I thought that was pretty cute. And then he actually come in and he's like, oh, my missus left something in the car for me, so good on him. And yeah, so he was pretty happy with it. As far as I know, she doesn't even know it's been done yet. She's come back from holidays and hasn't even noticed it. So as you can see, I'm putting the heat lights on. I just left it on there for 5 minutes. That looks pretty cool. It doesn't actually look like that in real life. I noticed it when I had the camera on there. With the screen, I'm like, oh wow, it's not looking like a disco nightclub or anything with those lights in real life, but it does look pretty cool. I'll show you that again later on when we're baking our primer. So once I've got that those repairs to a stage that I'm happy with, I've got some 320 grit on the orbital sander, and I'm removing all of those deeper scratches from the 80 grits that I left behind. So you don't want to prime over those deeper scratches, or else you run the risk of getting big shrink back and seeing the sanding scratches later on once the paint has fully cured. so giving a good dust off, and then just a bit of red coloured Scotch-Brite or maroon coloured Scotch-Brite. You can replace that for a sort of a green one as well, which is another coarse one. Anything prior to primer, there's no use in going too fine. Like grey coloured Scotch-Brite is something you might want to do prior to paintwork, whereas maroon is usually the way to go before primer work. And you see there I've got rid of all my shiny areas, so all my primers are going to stick. And next up, I'm just going to start masking it up. And for the inside of this door jamb here, I decided when I was doing the primer work, I didn't want to have to swing that door and do all that extra masking. So what I'm doing here is just putting a piece of paper on the inside and putting also another piece that around that wheel arch there, just so I'm not going to get any overspray with a bit of 1K primer, which is just 1K primer. It's not 2-pack, no hardener in it, and that'll just dry through evaporation. So acrylic primer, it's otherwise known as. And just sprayed a bit of that in there, just to give me something to sand back later, so I'm not trying to paint over the rough body filler. As I did say before, it is a quick job, so I'm cutting a few corners, but hey, end result's quite a good finish, you know. I'd be happy to drive it on my car. I probably wouldn't have done much more if it was my car, to be honest. So yeah, there you go, just throwing some pieces of paper around the edge. Not getting overly fussy with doing false edge masking. I find as long as you give yourself enough room, there's no need to. It's just extra time. Again, it could be saving, and as long as you've got a good, you know, bit of gun control, like you're not going to go right up to those edges. As you can see, I'm not here. There's no need to get too fancy with your edges, unless you're going to actually paint right up to that edge, which you'll see me do later when I'm masking across the false edge of the lines and the body lines, where I am actually going to paint right up to. That's when I do my false edges. So there you go, that's after the first coat. You can see there's still a lot of pinholes in it, but I went over and put another 4 coats over the top of that, and it's filled up the rest of those pinholes quite nice. 1 or 2 that wasn't quite filled up, but I'll put a bit in fine filler in that prior to blocking it down. So here we go, have a look at this disco again. Set it down to 83. I'm always monitoring it with these things. You've got to be very careful when you're using infrared drying lights. I have made a mess out of quite a few jobs with these things. Not heaps, but you know, probably 4 or 5 I've stuffed up. I've melted a tail light in a car. The boss wasn't very happy because the car was going that night. And I've just bubbled primer up and stuff like that, just got it too hot. So just, always careful with those infrared drying lights. And I've found you're better off, if you do use it in between each coat as well. So you put your first coat on, put the lights on for 5 minutes, turn it off, cool it down, and then put it on for 5 minutes, turn it off, let it cool down. Because if you put your primer over something that's say 80 or 90 degrees, it's going to start boiling or bubbling straight away. So that will actually come through when you go to paint it, and you might even get some slight pinholes and stuff like that. Just be extremely careful. Now, once that was dry, I sort of walked away for half an hour, and you might have noticed I gave you guys a quick look at the air filters. They're actually breathable air filters. Instead of Honeywell air filters, I actually ended up getting delivered in that day, and I'm just upgrading my breathable air in the spray booth because it got to the point where I decided I better start wearing a air-fed respirator. I'll give you guys a look at that setup later on. So I just gave it a bit of a block down with 180 first. Here comes the owner. He's here to pick something up that his girlfriend told him about in the car. Isn't that cute? Leaving notes for each other. Anyway, so gave it a block down with 180, then sanded the 180 grit scratches out with some 320 grit, and now I'm going over all the edges with a piece of 400. Sometimes I even go around the edges with 320 if they're really big, thick primer edges, stuff like that, and then go over the top of that with some 500. And I've got the interface pad on the orbital sander here, going over those blends with 500 grit. Anywhere sort of between 500 to 1000 is usually pretty fine for blends on a solid colour anyway. If it was sort of a silver or something, I might want to go a little bit finer. But don't forget that this pad I'm using here is 800 grit anyway, so I'm actually removing those 500 grit scratches, well most of them anyway, with the 800 grit pad I'm using here. and also using that to get into all the edges. Some people like to use Scotch-Brite instead, but I find these softback sanding sponges actually will remove a little bit more of the orange peel. They're not, you know, unless you sand them for a fair while, they're not actually going to remove all of it. You're just going to take that little bit of orange peel out, so you're starting from a clean canvas, I guess. So yeah, once that's all done, gone over all those edges, give it a good dust off. I'm going to be pulling that masking off all those edges so I didn't scratch the surrounding areas. And yeah, continuing on, we'll be going into the booth and giving it a mask up. Did some pretty tricky masking on this one because I had to swing both. The front door needed to be open to be able to paint the rear door properly, because the rear door had to be open to paint the inside of the door jamb. So this, I found, is the best way to mask it up. Just cut a slice down there, and I didn't get too involved with the masking on this one. I just decided to turn it off, and I'll give you guys a look over it here so you can see I've masked that front door off separately. I did that slice down there, made sure it's all nice and tight so it's not going to be flapping around when I'm painting, and it's not going to start landing into my fresh paintwork or anything like that. It's not a good sight to have that happen. How do I know all these tips that I give you? Because I've messed up before, you know. I'm no superhero. I'm just willing to share my career with you guys, and you know, it's great to do so. I've found 99.9% of people are really good. They give me thumbs up, they comment with really positive comments and feedback and stuff like that, and you know, if you pick up one thing out of these videos, well then great, that's totally awesome. I'm happy. So, and yeah, next up we're wax and grease remover in that atomizer bottle there, and then just wiping it off just with some rags here. Now I'm in my own shop now, so you know, I don't really want to go and spend hundreds of dollars on those the lint free rags, you know, so I just use normal rags, and I'll tell you what, they're totally fine. I get less silicone here and less paint contamination here than what I did at the previous shop when I was using all those wipes. So I've actually got a very good setup in this booth, and I've been very happy with the results I've been getting lately. As you see, I've prepped my booth up by putting water down. I will be making a video on my booth and just spray booths in general, including as much info as I can, but I'll tell you what guys, these videos don't make themselves. I spend hours and hours and hours every week on this channel, so I hope you guys appreciate it, and I know my loyal followers always do. So next up, just using the tack rag and high pressure air. You can replace that sort of just for your spray gun, the air coming out of your spray gun if you like. Always, you know, it's always a battle to try and keep trash and junk and stuff from landing in your paint jobs, so I might even just rattle off a few ways just now. So spray suit, water on the floor, filter your paint, tack rag, high pressure air, even a gun filter. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to sit down and actually brainstorm that one itself and itemize absolutely everything, even then filtering your air. I will do a video dedicated to how to stop getting as much dust as you can in your paint job. So here's a look at that filter system that I was installing when the primer was drying, and this one here was already a breathable air system, but it was very smelly, so I decided, you know what, I don't like it. There must have been a little bit of oil coming through, and I'd probably say that if you're smelling oil through your respirator, then you're probably actually better off just using a charcoal filter, because the oil that comes through your compressor and the air lines is probably worse than just using a normal charcoal filter. So keep that in mind. If you are using any air-fed respirators, you must make sure that that is safe to breathe. They have guys, I think I got quoted about $270 for a breathable air inspection and test, and I just decided, you know what, I'll just double or triple my filtration system and it should be fine. I've got an extra filter I just rocked up today, and I'll put that in the belt, so I've got a belt that runs my air filter as well, and then the air line to come out to my gun. And yeah, there'll be a video on that soon too, so stay tuned for all that kind of stuff. yeah, I make no apologies anymore about the longer videos. You know, the way I see it, if you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. If you do, because there's loads of people that do love watching these longer videos. So, yeah, thanks for watching if you're still here. There you go, just smashing a couple of good coats of red on. Like, how good does that cover? That was just the first coat. Gave it a bit of a double header, but you can barely even see through that anymore. Like, for a red, that's awesome. In solvent base, this is Concept No Mix. I've just got this brand new system in here. It's very cheap and it's very good quality paint so far. I'm loving it. I'm going to be doing a review on that, and also I might say the colour match was perfect. I mean, I just typed the colour code in. I actually don't have any colour cards yet. I'm waiting on those colour chips to come in, and I just did a blind search, just mixed up the standard variant. Perfect, no matching whatsoever. I mixed up 200 mils for this job, only for accuracy. Sometimes if you mix up a small amount, you may not quite get the accuracy, but in hindsight, I probably could have just mixed up 100 mils, and because the base coat is 1-to-1, 100 mils turns into 200 mils, so the 200 mils turn into 400 mils. I've actually got quite a lot of wastage, but I'll use this red on another job. It's not going to go to waste all in all. So yeah, there you go. This is my third and last coat of base coat. Just giving it a bit of a blend through there. I just about could have taken that colour right up to the front door, and it wouldn't have made any colour difference whatsoever. So there you go. Just making sure I go around all my edges. And I'm also using the Concept MS2K Clear spray gun I'm using. It's my new favourite gun. It's called the SGK-600-BV 1.4mm fluid tip on it. I've just recently done a review and demo on this, and this gun, it's my go-to gun. I mean, I've got Pro Lights in there, I've got iWater Ballarias in there, I've got GDI Pros, I've got so many guns. But I just find myself going to this one, just having a bit of fun using it. It's yeah, it's a great gun. Great big fan on it. Settings I use for base and clear. I've got the fluid just about wound right out actually. It doesn't seem to have a great amount of pull on that trigger compared to pulling the GTI and the GTI Pro. It seems like you can pull those triggers in a lot farther, so I've just ended up finding myself having that fluid wound right out. Both base and clear, full fan, and run at about 20 psi, give or take. Don't forget the temperature of the day is going to change your pressure settings. The colder it is, the pressure is going to go up a bit. So if it was sort of middle of winter over here, you know, if it was 10-15 degrees, we might have it up at 25-30 psi. If it was stinking hot, 45 degrees, it might only be down at 15 psi. However, on this day, it was just a beautiful 25-30 degree day. Can't ask for much better than that, especially when my spray booth doesn't even have any heat in it. So there you go, just giving it a mix up. I usually, when I'm mixing my base coat up, I just stir it and just thin it down by feel. I know how thick I need it. And same with the clear coat. On the can, it didn't actually say to put reducer in it. I just decided, you know, I'm just going to put a splash in there. Can't hurt, helps it dry out a bit as well. There you go, there's this respirator. I bought that to use for my sandblasting shed. We've just recently built a sandblasting shed, walk-in shed, and we found that, yeah, we're getting our faces sort of covered with the garnet, and decided to order that in. So I thought that I'd put a coat of clear coat over that visor so that hopefully it would sort of last a little bit better against the garnet getting sprayed into it. So see how that holds up. I'll be doing a video on sandblasting shed soon too. First coat of clear, not getting overly fussed with it, not going up to the front of that rear door either, because too many coats of clear can sometimes change the colour. Colour like this on a red, sort of mid to dark red, you know, you probably wouldn't see much of a colour difference. I mean, just out of habit, I try not to go right up to the edge with two coats, and usually gives me good results. So I walked out, just turned the booth off, walked out for 5 to 10 minutes, come back in, and go and put my second coat of clear on. It's pretty cool being my own boss. I get to, you know, I work as hard as I like, or do what I want, you know, and I've found, yeah, work just about as hard, if not a little bit harder now, and, you know, I can just go in, finish a coat of clear, go into the office, I'll go and answer some of your questions. That's what I do. take some photos, put them on Instagram. Having heaps of fun on Instagram. Do recommend you check me out on Instagram. I've been posting lots of stuff on all the projects, and you get them loads of updates daily. Links to that in the description of all my recent videos. I'm also on Twitter, Tumblr, Flickr, can't even remember them, on Facebook, yeah. And here's my second coat of clear. It's coming up quite nice. Hey, you know what? I gotta run. What you gonna do? On the bus, so deal with it. Yeah, I mean, to anyone who says they don't get runs, you're either full of shit or you're not trying hard enough, basically. Sorry to say that, but if you don't get a run every now and then you're not pushing the limits of the paint to try and get the best finish you possibly can. And we're human, you know? Like, I'm not a robot programmed exactly to paint everything perfectly. If you hang around here for another minute, you'll see it. I get a little bit of a run there, but you know, I didn't even polish it out on this car. I didn't say it was worth it. It was a cheap job, and yeah, start to finish, it came up quite nice. As I keep saying, it does get a little bit hard to talk for 25 to 30 minutes without repeating yourself, so I do apologise about that, guys, but yeah, I didn't force you to watch this video. Ooh, did I sense a little bit of attitude there, Gunman? Don't be silly. Anyway, there you go. Pretty nice orange peel, pretty clean. All in all, for a 5-hour job, very happy. So I'm going to, while it's still wet, so there's that little run there. But while this clear coat's still wet, I've decided to peel this false edge masking off. It helps that edge sort of melt in a little bit and not stick to the masking. Another good little tip there. And to finish off, I'm going to give you guys a quick look at it. I mean, I didn't even wash this car. All I did was just a little bit of a hand polish just around the surrounding areas, just so that, so the guy could kind of see when he picks it up that the colour is right. It's just that the surrounding areas need a good polish and a wax, and I think he said he was going to do that for his girlfriend anyway, so he had a few days off. There you go. Start to finish, came up quite nice. And I'll finish up just with a few photos. These photos are actually all the photos I posted onto Instagram of this job during the day, so make sure you do go over and check me out on Instagram so you don't miss out on any of my updates. There you go, as a start. Don't forget to hit that like button. A like is the same as donating $1 to my channel. I really do appreciate you watching this entire video. If you haven't already seen it, check out one of these videos at the end. Highly recommend both of them. Otherwise, view my channel. Thanks for watching, and this has been another Gunman production. Peace out.